Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Patrick. Welcome back to Global Startup TV. As I already mentioned that I'm going to have a special interview with the Uppsala Innovation Centre, and especially I'm going to talk with the Michael Kamitz, who is a business advisor of Uppsala Innovation Centre. And as I talk, I realized that he's very wise and he's intelligent in terms of how to foster startups. And he has a great experience as the entrepreneur, and it's going to be really great time just get to know about him and the Uppsala Innovation Center. So if you want to get a glimpse of his knowledge and intelligence, just take a look at.
Kamitz. I work as a senior advisor at the business incubator here in the Uppsala region in Sweden, Scandinavia. And my background is I've been working as a management consultant for many, many years, and also as a distinguished business leader within the Swedish big corporations for a long time. So I'm 60 years of age, and this is like the end phase of my career. So I'm really enjoying working here with Uppsala Innovation Centre. And the Innovation Centre is an incubator owned by the university, actually two universities. First, the Uppsala University, which is the oldest university in Scandinavia. It was founded in 1477. And also the Swedish University of Agriculture Science, that's also located in my hometown. These two universities share this incubator, and we serve these two universities, but also the regions, so the municipality, the local government here. They're also our sponsors. So we are a non-profit incubator and work for the good of society, so to say. Yeah. As I said before, I have a long career working with business development and strategic issues for big corporations in Sweden for a long, long time. And basically, I've been commuting to other cities and internationally. So it's very nice to be able to work in your hometown. And it's also, energetic and gives back a lot to work with an incubator like this. And I got in contact with the incubator like 4 years ago, when I was asked to support as a mentor for some of our startups. So that was my first contact with the incubator. And then last year, I decided to join them more permanently. We have a special model how we do the incubation here in Uppsala. First of all, we don't have any specific office space that we lend to our startups. We are located in a science park, so we can recommend our startups to find locations and accommodations at the science park if they want. But that's not, something that is mandatory that they have to be in our office. So that's number one. Number two is that we don't take any shares or any ownership in the companies. We have no financial interest whatsoever in the startups. So we are a free service for them, financed by the university and the municipality, as I said before. And also, instead of taking any financial interest or any profits or any royalties or anything from our startups, we have a special model where the service providers of this region, the banks, the law firms, the advertising agencies, the patent bureaus, the accounting firms, all these companies, all of them have signed up to be our sponsors. So we have 25 private sponsors, all of them service providers in these kind of sectors, which give us a grant yearly to fund approximately 50% of our budget. So you could say that we get our success fee from our private partners instead of directly from the startups. And the private partners do this because they, of course, would like us to be successful, but they also want, of course, new clients for their services. So by doing it this way, the banks and the accounting firm and the insurance companies will get new clients from our startups because they will most likely be directed to find their services from them. And we integrate also the service providers in our programs. So we get them as lecturers and supporters and mentors. So that's what I think was distinguish our business model compared to others. And also the fact that we have a great volume of startups in our incubator at the same time. So we are about 8 full-time employees. It's a small number of people, but we harbor approximately 112 startups within our programs on an annual basis. So that's quite a lot, if you compare to other incubators, with a working force of 8 people, they maybe will harbor 10 to 15 companies. But are being able to scale it up. We have a model where we can scale up, and be very efficient in a way of incubating. So, yeah. Yeah, it's a long and big question. I'll do my best. Yeah, right. Okay. I would say that there are 3 or maybe 4 issues that you would face as an entrepreneur and innovator. First one is, if you're an innovator, like some smart scientists or some researchers from the university come up with a very smart idea for a new molecule, for a drug development or something. First of all, you need to understand how will this product, this solution that I have, how will it fit to the market? You need to have some market acceptance. You need to have what we call a product market fit. That's number one issue, to see, does this really work? Are there enough customers, enough clients out there? Will they be able to pay me enough money to fund the company, which I can live on? That's issue number one. Issue number two is then, what does it really take for me to transfer my competence, from being an innovator, researcher, to be an entrepreneur? What kind of competence, what kind of skills do I need? That would be things like organizing, leadership, it will be strategic thinking, it will be finance, it will be marketing, it will be lots of judicial issues, around how the regulation, the law would affect your running your company. That's number two. And number three, I would say, is to get the startup to get their first sell, their first contract is extremely important. So what we can do is to help the entrepreneur, guide them, and maybe even mentor them to visit the first client. So preferably, if a big corporation like Samsung or LG in a Korean setting, that would be like Volvo or Ericsson in a Swedish setting. If they would be the first customer for a small startup, that would be an extremely good reference client for the startup. So we will try to help them to make the first sell. That's number three. And number four is, of course, how do I get risk capital? How do I get venture capital to my company? Because I need more external capital to grow. So how do I get access to that kind of money? And what do I need to do to be able to attract, big investors to put some money into my venture? So these are the 4 major issues that we try to help and support the companies with, or the startups. And the first issue with the product market fit, we have like a session called the Lean Business Canvas model, which you probably are familiar with. It's a methodology how you try to organize the thinking of a young entrepreneur or a young inventor, how to square up your mind so you will see that you have a fit for your product. So we do that. And then how to be an entrepreneur, we have a program called the Business Lab, where we actually condensate the content of a curriculum for a Master of Business Administration, MBA, to a 5 to 6 months period, where we run up to 10 to 12 different lectures with the external speakers, like our service providers, but also distinguished business people that would train our startups in all these issues that you need, all these areas that you need to be skillful in to become an entrepreneur. And then around the first sell, we also have a system of business coaches, external mentors, as myself before I joined the company, which help and support the startup companies in mentoring them for their first sell, and also how to organize their activities. And then, of course, being a successful incubators, we have a vast network of VC interest of VC companies that are likely to want to visit us and look into our portfolio of startup companies. So we try to do that matchmaking as well. So yeah, so I would say we try to fulfill all these 4 areas really, but we can of course be better in some of these areas. When it comes to VC money, for instance, Sweden has a system, tax-wise, that doesn't really promote the growth of middle-class people to invest money in VC funds. So it comes from different areas, which I think is a pity. So yeah, we can come back to that later. That's one of my main issues, how to attract more VC money. Right. You can actually read more about the criteria for this ranking in the UBI Global's website. There's a ranking company called UBI Global. You'll find the UBI-global.com, I think, or yeah. Anyways, that's the website. So what they really measure, I think what's most important is, of course, the success rate. So how is the success rate of the startups that are exiting from our programs? Will they survive or will they die? That's the first and most important issue of all, I would say. And we have a success rate of 90%. So 90% of the companies leaving us are surviving, and most of them are prospering and growing. Not all of them, but at least the majority of the ones that leave us will grow and be very successful in the long run. So that's the most important part, I would say, and we excel in that area. And the second part, I think, is also what I told you about before, the fact that we can scale up our work. So without 8 people, we can run 112 companies in parallel in our incubator. So the efficiency in how we spend our money, how we spend our budget, I think that's another important measurement as well. And then the third, I would say, is the deal flow, the fact that we've been able to work very closely together with the universities, but also with other players and stakeholders in the region. So they will feed us with the project into our incubator. So we don't really have to go out and scout for new entrepreneurs or innovators. They come to us. So what we do, we get some 250 different proposals every year. And out of that deal flow of 250, we pick out 50 to 80 projects or companies that we would work with. So that's a fortunate situation for us, of course. So, but the backside of that is that we have created a very effective, innovation ecosystem here in this region, where different stakeholders really work together for the common good of creating more companies. You know, because it's good for society. Everybody wants, you know, the startup community to grow and be successful. That's a win-win for everybody. Taxpayers, entrepreneurs, and, you know, customers and clients. So yes, so I would say collaboration within the region. You know, if you want to learn something in Korea, I would say try to find a way where you can collaborate different stakeholders in a region to support the innovation system, and don't build up 2 or 3 different incubators that would compete. Focus on one incubator and let that incubator have that role, and let the others take other roles like scouting or supporting or, you know, financing and, you know, ease regulation and so on. Some cases, some companies that we work. Yeah. So we've been working since 1999, so for 17 years. So of course there is a vast number of companies that have left us, but I picked out a few that might be of interest. You know, in Uppsala Innovation Centre, about 40% of our startups will come from or aiming for the life science sector. And 30% roughly will be for IT sector, and the rest will be like material technology, clean tech, and that kind of stuff. So I have some examples. We have one example from the from the life science sectors. That's a company called Cavidi, CAVIDI. So they have invented a smart diagnostic system for HIV virus, which could be used in remote places, out in developing countries, out in the field. So you don't need a big fancy laboratory in a European country, you know, to be able to diagnose the tests from a patient if they have HIV or not. So that could be done in the field, and that have really revolutionary the way of treatment of HIV, specifically in Africa, but also in other countries, of course. So they have been very successful, very recognized also by the UN and the WHO organization, and they got some very big financing loan from the World Development Bank for expanding their business. So that's a very good example. Another example in the life science sector is a company called Halo Genomics. So they do a splitting of the DNA molecules, the DNA spiral, you know, in a way for using that for diagnostic purposes. So they build up their first business here in our incubator. And then before they started their real market launch, they were bought up by a big American company. So they're now been integrated in a Californian-based company, and they got loads of money and paid for that startup. And the founders of Halo Genomics, they have now continued to grow up other startups here in our incubators. So you can see that's a good spin-off. All success doesn't necessarily has to be an IPO or an independent company. It can also be a buyout or an acquisition for another big company, and the money they will get for that will then be invested in the startup community here. Another very well-known, of course, startup that comes from Uppsala University and was slightly attached to our incubators is the service we're running right now, the Skype. You know, the Skype founder was a student here. Philip Sandström was a student here at Uppsala University, and he really invented this thing that we're using right now. So. It was not directly, I would say, that we could say it was a part of our incubator, but we were attached to the first step of Skype, you know, and that's the most famous Swedish unicorn, I would say, right now, of course. We also have another example of a company called OAC Microtech, which produces components for micro satellites that are launched up into space for monitoring the Earth, for taking images of the Earth. So they work very closely with the European Space Agency and been also a supplier to NASA in the US. So they're also very, high prestige project. They didn't make a lot of money, but they have been successful and very well recognized. The space industry tends to be not as big as you think, because there's not that much money in space that you would think, because it's very well controlled and lots of government subsidized in the space program. So the profit is not as high as you would hope for. But still, it's a recognized thing. Another example is also in the gaming industry. We have a company called AdventureBox that is just about to launch their system right now. So they have built a platform where where users can build game online on a web browser instead of download the program directly on the computer. They can build the games directly on the web browser, and using the same kind of principle as the famous game Minecraft. Minecraft is also a game that was invented by a Swedish guy and then eventually bought up by Microsoft. So it's very popular among the young kids. I don't know if you're familiar with Minecraft as a game. It's a game for kids, where they can play up and build their own world, and they can conquer one another, But it's an ingenious way of doing that. But for do that, you need to download a lot of heavy programs and software on your computer. So these guys in AdventureBox had invented a way to go over that step and do it directly on the web browser instead. And then we also last we have a company called iMint, which what they have done is they built a stabilizer for mobile phone cameras, or for digital cameras, really. So if the camera is shaking a lot, they could stabilize the picture. That's already in the system of the iPhone and I believe also in the Samsung phone. But they're taking this a few steps further, and the intention was to build it for an application for defense industry, where they take satellite pictures, or where there's small aircrafts without any people in it, that would run what do you call it, the drones, with the drones, where the military would use drones to take pictures over the warfield, and that would be very shaky when the drones go. So iMint had invented a way of stabilizing the software. So, and they actually been approached by Huawei, the Chinese telephone company, that are extremely interested in investing in them. So yeah, so that's a few of the companies, but we have, as you understand, many more. So I can talk on this issue forever. So I stop there. Yeah. Yeah, and if you want to learn more about our startups, you can find on our website. We have it's in English also, our companies, the UIC companies, and you will find the web addresses for these companies. You can learn more, and most of them have an English translation on the website. So